Hello, welcome to episode 1 of this brand new podcast. If you've seen any of my content before, you probably know that it is going to be focused on healthcare. We'll end up touching some topics around health and wellness, marriage and children, faith and spirituality. This particular podcast and this episode, I want to give you a real high level overview of the business of medicine. And one of the biggest problems right now that America is facing is how complicated, complex the actual business of medicine has become. If we could separate out the health and wellness aspect from the actual economics of it, that would be great. The problem is it's impossible to do so whenever you are dealing every day with payers that are charging providers or paying providers less and less money. Medicare is clawing back money at record levels now with unchecked auditing power by auditors, right? We got patients that continue to get lost inside of this cycle, and they get bounced between specialists and providers and referral sources, and they don't understand copays and deductibles and why some tests are covered and why others are not, and why some businesses that offer the exact same tests, like in diagnostic, have in-network contracts or not. Patients are not in charge of the decisions, but yet they have to pay the tab for everything insurance companies don't know what they're paying for until they get the bill, right? Because we don't have a process anymore where a doctor comes in and actually makes eye contact with you, or a nurse practitioner sits in the seat and actually talks to you. What we got is a EMR system that's in the corner of the room and a computer that we've got to check the boxes to make sure that we are providing adequate care and that we can get paid. So these EMRs have really desensitized medicine. And if they don't do that part right, they're not going to be able to stay in business. And when I say they, I mean the provider and the doctor, because their payments will not get approved. And if there's no money, there's no medicine. There's no money, there's no mission. And so the mission of this podcast is for us to break down the business of medicine in easy bite-sized pieces that allows both providers and patients and those of us who spent most of their careers in the ancillary service provider aspect of healthcare, whether that's diagnostic laboratories, that's DME, that's inside of some type of service, selling oxygen tanks to home health. Doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're serving patient care and somehow you're wrapped up into this billing process, you know you're studying a language that changes on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual basis. And every single year, you're signing up to make less money seeing more patients, doing more for less. And sometimes, like what just happened to the wound care industry, a really great and novel piece of science that got into the hands of the wrong people, bad actors, ruined a complete industry. And Medicare makes sweeping changes that completely throw the baby out with the bathwater. And an industry is now in shambles. And from the manufacturer's standpoint, well, sucks that they're not making as much money as they were last year. They're part of the problem. From the provider's standpoint, it sucks that they can't get out to see patients to care for them, but they too are part of the problem. But the person that's not in control of any of these decisions or outcomes is the patient. And if you're poor in America and you're in a rural area and you're separated socioeconomically, if you have a generational poverty in your area, your wounds more than likely are getting worse and worse. And so this decision by Medicare that flows through the manufacturer into the provider network, ultimately the consequence is more amputations, more hospitalizations, higher infection counts, and more deaths. And with my own eyes, I've seen it in less than 45 days. The change has been that real. And that's what is at risk right now whenever we don't understand the business of medicine. I got really lucky. I had some extreme failure in my life early on. Did not understand finance at all. Understand banking accounts, checking accounts, didn't understand loans, leases. And so had some really early entrepreneurial failures that led to me meeting my wife and seeing her father, who was a banker and the president of a bank, and me setting my target on actually learning something that was a big weakness, right? They caused a lot of pain and set me back quite a bit. Lost everything, to becoming a private banker for JP Morgan Chase, having life, health, and accident insurance licenses, passing my Series 6, studying a couple times for my 7, got always promoted out of it, being in the same room with trust advisors and wealth management advisors, and being able to put together deals that were, rehab facilities, physician-owned laboratories, underwriting hospitals, underwriting investor groups that were purchasing and doing construction loans for medical office buildings. And then also I had like 85 doctors that I was lucky enough and blessed to be able to bank and do their home equity loans and do their business loans and help them understand their treasury management services and their payer terminal charges. And, it was an all-encompassing, I got taught the business of medicine by JP Morgan. I got taught the business of medicine and relationships by Iberia Bank in Lafayette, Louisiana. And I had some amazing mentors. And just being in that room has helped me for the rest of my life. And that was 20 years ago. And so I still go back to lessons that I learned back then whenever I'm sitting eyeball to eyeball with a provider and we are talking about the problems with their practice, the problems with billing, the problems with compliance, the problems with payroll, the problems with their cheeks needing to be on that seat. And that's the only way that they're making money. And they got to see more patients. And when you see more patients, you compress into less time with each patient. Otherwise, you hire more mid-levels. You hire more mid-levels, you're taking on more payroll. You're taking on more risk. You take more risk now with more payroll. If you have a hiccup like, an audit, and they all of a sudden decide you owe them money back because you didn't check the boxes or because the EMR was cookie cutter and they were actually just layering in the same question, same answer, same question, same answer. Well, the auditors look at it and say, well, you're treating every patient the same way every time. That's a problem. Give us our money back. And then they do some crazy Jedi math trick that says that you failed 85% of the audit. They audited 86 files. You failed 86% of the time. Give us back $860,000. And they start the clawback. And you have to appeal. And now you have to hire a law firm and a legal team. Like, these things get out of control fast, especially whenever you go to like medicine school, medical school for a decade. I mean, you're in college, then you end up going on to medical. You do your residency, maybe you do a specialist, maybe you become a specialist. Like you have hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loans and no finance classes, no economic classes, no billing and coding classes, no payroll classes, no insurance classes, no mortgage classes, no classes on keeping your first spouse. It's cheaper to keep her. It's cheaper to keep him. No classes on fraud. No classes on these things. End up happening kind of external. Hopefully you get plugged into a good group that's mentoring you. But if you get into a group that, is in South Florida, Dallas, Texas, Arizona right now, there's some fraud hotbeds. And I'm sorry if you live in one of those towns, brother, but I've done business with plenty of doctors in those towns where they're outright asking for kickbacks. And you have to literally put it like you have to kick them away. You can't get the stink away from you. So the problem with the business of medicine is that there have been some people that have been let in that they don't think the rules apply to them. And if you're a brand new resident and you happen to get recruited by somebody who doesn't think the rules apply to them or doesn't think they're going to get caught, they're making a calculated bet on statistics. They're not looking at me. They're looking at other people. They're looking at all those other guys that are doing way more worse stuff than me. What you don't understand now in today's world is they're using AI. And their AI actually isn't that good. It's not. We see it. The outcome of the audits are rubber stamp They do not care at this point. They're going to get the easy money because the auditors get a percentage of whatever they get. So if you fall in with people mentoring you and taking risks that you don't even know are risks because you've never seen the other side, I hope this podcast challenges your actual perspective and searches and has you want to search for answers outside of yourself. We're going to bring some experts in here, right? We're going to bring some folks that are going to talk to you about your own health and wellness, mental health for providers. We're going to talk about physical wellness, quite possibly you looking at our FDA-approved peptides or some of the other things that are out there to be able to help with your own longevity. Whether you're a patient, you're a provider, or you're one of these ancillary service providers, that's going to benefit you because you're a human being. We're going to talk about some spirituality because a lot of you have lost your actual purpose, right? You've lost the want, the need, the desire to even heal. Why? Because it's such an uphill battle and you're exhausted and you're burnt out and you're second guessing why you even picked this vocation. Why are you even in the place that you're in right now? Right? You want to quit, you want to do something else. That's why some of you get in some of the worst business deals we've ever seen. That's why some of you take the money that you've made, you give it to somebody who you think has a good idea, and then they screw you on the other side. And trust me, your reputation is of that. People will say doctors are horrible businessmen. Well, no shit. They are. Why? Because they have no training for that, right? Because you're treating a human being. And as soon as we start talking about money in medical school, we dehumanize it. But that's what happens in the real world. You buy, sell high. Make sure I get as much as I possibly can for the visit. Get that digital x-ray machine in here because I can charge more for it. Invest in an imaging center. Why? Because I need some ancillary income. Be a part of a surgery center. Be a pain doctor that does spine surgeries with very limited training from sales reps who are teaching you how to do spine surgery, right? These are the things that are actually happening. And I'm no judgment on any of that, man. I got some of my best good friends could literally be spine surgeons because they've done so many of them. They got it dialed in, right? But that's the type of stuff that's happening and is going on. And if you don't have eyes to be able to see that liars buy from liars, if you're lying to yourself, the truth will not be revealed to you. You're going to buy these stories. If you're signing up for something that you don't understand, you got to ask questions. I taught the business of medicine to second and third year residents in Lafayette, Louisiana. We sponsored this program where they brought in all the third year residents, all the second year residents. And we brought in life insurance agents. We brought in, the bank did, we brought in financial advisors, lawyers to talk about contracts, CPAs to talk about taxes. And I did the lending and the loans and the things that, checking accounts, business accounts, kind of the importance of a financial relationship with a bank. In the year that we did that, we did it for 3 years, but the year that I did that kind of as part of that team, we also taught nurse practitioners. And I taught periodontist in New Orleans, part of Tulane's program. Not once did I ever get a question from a second or third year residents whenever I said any questions. For a year of CPAs, financial advisors, not once in the classroom did I get questions. What I would get is questions via text message. Get questions in the hallway. I wouldn't get questions in front of their peers. And it was just always something that struck me. The nurse practitioners, question after question after question after question. Like we had to shut down question answers. There's so many of them. They were asking questions for their mama. They were asking questions for their aunt. They were asking questions for their husband. They were asking questions. They were trying to figure out. They were curious and didn't care if anybody thought they were stupid because of the question that they were asking. So it says something about the provider and the doctor and the way that they actually come up and the way that their alpha mentality and the 1%er mentality doesn't allow them to look vulnerable to ask questions. But let me tell you something. When you're about to invest serious money or you're looking at an audit that's hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, if you're sitting on 3 or 4 employees that are going to total another $400,000 in bottom line expense and you don't understand how your EMR is going to be, bill for what they're doing, or you're missing so much other revenue, you got to ask questions. So if you don't want to ask any questions in medicine, you got a problem. We could talk about that. But if you don't want to ask any questions in business or surround yourself with experts who can help you with that, brother, like, don't do it. Sister, don't do it. It is you're signing up for, right? So the whole target of this podcast and this space right here is for us to actually talk about the business of medicine in a way that's productive, where experts are coming and I'm bringing a problem to them and they're answering those problems, right? The comment section should also be very helpful, because that's where you can ask some questions and we'll go ahead and answer comments as we possibly can. Okay, we get something wrong, hey man, let us know. If you think you got a better idea, even better, let us know. If we provide any value to you, my only request is you like it, you subscribe to it, and you share it, right? Because there's a provider there, I guarantee you, that probably needs to know exactly what you heard. If you thought it was valuable, then they're going to think it's valuable. You could end up helping someone else with that, right? So as we kind of go through this process together and we line up speakers, the other thing we want is actual providers. We want to talk with providers who have been in the pocket, who've either been successful or have some type of value to the audience. So we're going to be reaching out to providers specifically around how they're running their businesses, what they're seeing, what's working for them, what's not working for them. And then as we kind of build that, that's going to allow us to be able to start looking at opportunities out there for things like clinically integrated networks, what's going on with recent ACOs, how are those things performing, the value-based care initiatives that are actually coming down the pipe, what Medicare is doing with some of their rule changes, some of these advocacy groups that are coming in to be able to help represent groups and how they're making their policy changes. We're going to bring in some lobbyists to talk about government affairs and how we can have a voice at a ground floor level right here, grassroots level, that can reach Washington with the appropriate strategy and the ability to be able to get out there with a message that matters when it's rooted in patient care, right? So it's a lot. It's a lot to cover. It's a lot to unpack. It's something that I'm very passionate about. It's something that I'm very happy that we landed on this particular format at this particular time. I feel like I'm personally built for this because of the experience as a diagnostic laboratory owner, somebody who got extremely involved in wound care, was a private banker and inside of the finance aspect of it, did do biometric monitoring solutions and Bluetooth solutions for remote patient monitoring. We cover a lot, from long-term care to rehab facilities to hospitals and inpatient care and all the in between. My team covers a lot. So as we kind of bring on people and experts, we hope that you're able to ask better questions for your own situation, right? If this does anything, I pray that it puts something in your mind and exposes a blind spot, shines a light on a dark area that you've been refusing to look at, an area in your life that you know needs to improve, an area of your life that you know if it doesn't change, it's a risk, it's a liability, and it can impact your children. It can impact your spouse. It can impact your employees' children. Because ultimately, if you're a provider or a mid-level and you own a practice, you know you got people who are depending on you. And the patients are in that table of people who are depending on you. So God bless you. Thank you for joining me. And we look forward to unpacking all of this with you over the next couple months and years.